thief of hearts, a woman's crime of romance fraud. "You're a thief of hearts, and now you'll have to pay," the lyrics echoed as Esther's world came crashing down around her. Trapped in a deadly web of lies and betrayal, she had no choice but to trust the man who had lured her into this dangerous game. Here on the Will I Be Happy channel, we'll follow Esther's story after the man she had found so charming revealed his true identity. Episode 4. Little Miss Black Widow. So far in this story, the mysterious man Esther had met on a night out turned out to be a wanted criminal. She was falling in love with him, and he had betrayed her trust. But now, her life was in danger too. Esther's mind raced as she tried to process Victor's startling revelation. Powerful connections? Deadly risk? What had she gotten herself into? As she lay awake that night, after they were both released from hasty police custody, the weight of her situation began to sink in. She had become entangled with a mafia man who was clearly involved in something far more sinister than she could have ever imagined, and by extension, her own life was now in jeopardy. The city's neon lights, once a symbol of hope and adventure, now cast ominous shadows on her apartment walls, reminding her of the peril she faced. The next day, Esther found herself back at the lounge, her eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of Victor. She needed answers, and she needed them now. But when she finally spotted him, she was taken aback by the intensity of his expression. His usual composed demeanor was replaced by a palpable tension that set her on edge. "We need to talk," he said, pulling her aside. "There's been a complication." Esther's heart raced. What kind of complication? Victor's gaze darted around the room, his jaw tightening. "Someone's been asking questions. About me, about us." Esther felt a chill run down her spine. Who? Who's been asking questions? "I don't know," Victor admitted, his voice low and urgent. "But whoever it is, they're getting closer to the truth, and that means we're both in grave danger." Esther's mind whirled, her thoughts racing as she tried to make sense of this new development. What are we going to do? Victor's expression hardened. "We need to disappear. Tonight. I'll make the arrangements." Esther felt a surge of panic. Disappear? But what about my life here, my job, my apartment, everything I've worked for? Victor gripped her arm, his eyes burning with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. "Don't you see, Esther? This is bigger than all of that. Your life is at stake. We have to leave now before it's too late." As Esther stared into Victor's eyes, she felt a sinking realization wash over her. She had become a pawn in a game far beyond her understanding, and now her only choice was to run. But even as she agreed to Victor's plan, a part of her couldn't help but wonder if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. The hours leading to their escape were a blur of frantic preparation. Esther packed a small bag, her hands trembling as she shoved essentials into it. Once a playground of endless possibilities, the city now felt like a prison closing in around her. She thought of her friends, her job, the life she had built from scratch. Could she just leave it all behind? Victor remained a constant presence, his urgency and determination keeping her grounded. They met in a secluded alleyway on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, away from prying eyes and potential threats. He handed her a pocket knife, a wad of cash, and a fake ID. "We'll stay off the grid," he instructed. "No contact with anyone from your past life. It's the only way to stay safe." As they boarded a bus heading out of the city, Esther's mind raced with questions and doubts. Who were they running from? How deep did Victor's connections go? And most pressing of all, could she really trust him? The bus ride was long and silent, the weight of their situation hanging heavily between them. Esther stared out the window, watching the city lights fade into the distance. Each mile they put between themselves and Manhattan felt like a step further into the unknown, but also a step away from the danger that had been closing in on them. As dawn broke, they arrived at a small, inconspicuous motel. Victor checked them under false names, and they settled into their room, the tension palpable. "This is just temporary," Victor assured her. "We'll find a more permanent solution soon." But Esther couldn't shake the feeling of dread. Her life had been turned upside down, and she was now a fugitive, running from threats she didn't fully understand. The man she had fallen for was at the center of it all. Despite his reassurances, she couldn't help but wonder if trusting him was her only option, or her greatest mistake. Esther's world has been turned upside down, as she's forced to confront the dangerous implications of her relationship with Victor. Now, with their lives on the line, they must make a desperate attempt to disappear, but at what cost? Before she could gather her thoughts, the door creaked open and a strange man entered their room. As the situation grows increasingly dire, Esther is about to discover how far she will go to survive. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon so you can be notified about the last chapter of this Will I Be Happy story. It's an ending you don't want to miss.